Welcome into the Take the North podcast. I'm Adam Studzinski, filling in once again today for David Haw as we continue to shuffle our schedule around during the end of the Bears offseason. I'm alongside Dan Wiederer of the Chicago Tribune. And Dan, training camp is over for all intents and purposes. The Bears are starting to work towards the Titans. In fact, I'm sure they've already started work on them, and they have found their plan at long snapper. Can you tell us obviously we have to start with long snapper news. Patrick Manley would be proud of us. So What can you tell us about the Bears' new temporary long snapper?
We've got Hard Knocks, we've got QB1, we've got hype building in Chicago, and we start this episode naturally with some long snapper news. Patrick Scales, 8-year Chicago Bear, 120 games under his belt, had back surgery. He is on injured reserve and is out indefinitely. The Bears had used Cameron Lyons throughout the remainder of the preseason after Scales got hurt in the Hall of Fame game, and now they're pivoting. They are pivoting to Scott Daly, Downers Grove native, for those loving the hometown ties of some of Ryan Poles' acquisitions. He played the last 3 seasons in Detroit, 42 games there, but missed the last half of last year after suffering a season-ending knee injury. Went into training camp this year in a competition with, I believe, Hogan Hatton, a rookie out of Idaho in Detroit. Lost that competition, was cut on Tuesday, cleared waivers, comes to Chicago as a practice squad member. The Bears now, Adam, have 3 exemptions to promote him from the practice squad to the game day active roster. They're going to need more than that. So essentially they have a 3-week window to not use a roster spot on Scott Daly. But as soon as we get into week 4, they're going to have to clear a roster spot, and he will be their long snapper, perhaps permanently. Who knows? At that point, you're just kind of measuring his performance. You're measuring Scales' recovery from this back injury. And I think there's a lot here. I'll let you react to that bombshell news, and then we'll hear a little bit from Richard Hightower.
All right, so I think that, number one, the fact that actually, you know what? First things first, is there any relation here to the Dalys of the Chicago Dailies? He's an area kid. That was my first thought. Like, is this a Mayor Daly?
I believe it's spelled differently.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't think there's a relation there. But good thought. I mean, look, this is a Daly town, and if he ingratiates himself well early, then maybe he can take over as well.
Yeah, of course. So, but more seriously, I think that my initial reaction when I figured out who Scott Daly is was, at least he has proven he can long snap for an entire season and not be fired. I think that's the first thing you want. Like, he was able to snap in the NFL, and he lost his job during the offseason, but he was with the Lions for an extended period, and they didn't fire him. Now, we would have to probably dig and look at how his snaps really are, and Patrick Manley can probably tell you more about that than we could, but I think that's a little comforting. The fact that we don't know how long Patrick Scales is going to be out is concerning, though. So, do we know what is wrong with his back, or has there been any clarity on anything back related? You want to take seriously?
Exactly. And I said to Brad Biggs on Thursday morning that there is no such thing as minor back surgery or minor neck surgery, right? Like, especially when you're being asked to play the long snapper position. I can't fathom a scenario in which Patrick Scales undergoes back surgery in late August and is back on the football field before November at the earliest, right? It just feels like the recovery time, the rehabilitation time, the strengthening time. Maybe we will get a little bit more clarity on the severity of the injury that required the surgery, but it feels like something that's going to be a little bit longer term, certainly longer term than the Bears immediately let on after he suddenly stopped practicing, in the early parts of training camp. So that is something to keep a close eye on. The disconcerting part about this, Adam, is that you haven't had a lot of time on task. And Scott Daly walked out onto the House Hall practice fields on Thursday afternoon in his fresh number 46 jersey. And that was his first time working with Cairo Santos, his first time working with Torrey Taylor. And so now you have a place-kicking battery now that has basically 4 practices next week, kind of 3.5. You'll have Monday, you'll have Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then you go into a regular season game. And I know that the grand fear is that a missed kick will spoil Caleb Williams' debut, right? And it's nothing to laugh at, because it's very easy to see a scenario where there's something a little bit wrong in the operation that creates something that screws up Cairo Santos, right? And then all of a sudden the ball sails wide left, and I don't need to tell you about kicks that can prove scarring in Chicago. And so we'll see where that goes. I did have a chance to ask Richard Hightower on Thursday what the challenge is of trying to accelerate the chemistry building process between a snapper, a holder, and a kicker. And here's what he had to say.
Yeah, I mean, it's just something we're going to have to work on. It is extremely challenging. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. A lot of people think that you just snap, hold, kick, and the ball goes through the uprights, but there's a lot of different things that play into that. The laces, the lean on the ball, the wind, how you tilt the ball can change the direction and the flight pattern of the ball. How you snap the ball can change that. How you hold the ball can change that. The steps on the kicker's operation can change that. So it's just something that we're going to have to work through, and we feel great about it. We feel great about the fact that we were able to get Scott, and they're gonna work good together. We're excited about it.
So, Studs, you have a scenario here where you not only have a new long snapper, but you have a rookie holder who is also going to have a ton on his plate as a punter. And so you're asking a lot there of those two guys. And then you're asking a lot of Cairo Santos to try to get himself acclimated quickly. I know it sounds minor. It's not, and there's going to be a lot that comes with this. You go talk to Patrick Manley, Robbie Gould, and Brad Maynard, about the time on task and the repetition of the operation and how much it means when you have consistency. And you'll learn a lot about how significant this could be. Hopefully we never talk about it again. Hopefully this is the only episode to Take the North all year where we have 7 minutes of long snapper talk, but that's a little bit of news coming out of Lake Forest.
I will say just to wrap up the long snapper conversation, like it really is like fascinating how particular that position is. And especially Richard Hightower mentioned like the laces. I didn't know until a couple years ago, talking with Patrick Manley on The Score, that where the laces are when the holder gets the ball is actually on the snapper. Right. Like it's up to the snapper to make sure he has X number of rotations on the ball. So when the punter or whoever's holding gets the ball, it's laces out and he can just put the ball down. Also, something else, like I felt like during the preseason games, we saw some not so great snaps, and Tory Taylor handled them, and they didn't miss a field goal in a game. Yeah, I know that there were field goals during practice.
PAT,
there was. Yeah, you're right.
One missed PAT, yeah.
There was one. But I felt like Tory Taylor did handle some bad snaps pretty well. So I think that I'm fairly confident in what he's doing there. So that's just an aside. So it really is a fascinating position, and I underplayed it on The Score the last couple of days. And I will say, like, I understand it's important, but when we're talking about like the most important things on the Bears, it's like in the top 5 least important things. And it's ideally, like you said, hopefully it's something you insert and they get it down and you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, hopefully again, this is the last time we talk about it, because we have bigger fish to fry. And one of those fish is the quarterback wearing the number 18 jersey. And it's really been a good week, I think, this week, Adam, for the Bears to kind of take a breath. They had practices on Wednesday and Thursday after some closed walkthroughs on Sunday and Monday. And Matt Eberflus was just trying to really establish the rhythm and flow of a game week with the practices on Wednesday and Thursday, get Caleb acclimated to that. You continue to hear nothing but high praise out of the building about the way he's handled himself through this extended training camp and his readiness to take this team forward into winning. One of the most noteworthy things that we heard early in the week from actually this was during a sit down I had with Cole Kmet earlier in training camp, was how wired for winning Caleb is, and that he's understanding that, look, like the quarterback isn't going to be a finished product in September. He's not going to be a finished product in early October. It's going to take a long time for him to grow. In the meantime, Caleb understands that he only has to be good enough on every given game day to win a game. And so you're going to deal with the bumps, you're going to deal with the mistakes, you're going to deal with the errors. But when you have a quarterback who understands, okay, this is what we're dealing with today. This is what I have today. This is the situation we're in at this point in the game, and I'm going to try to put my best foot forward to win this football game. That's going to be key. Well, then on Wednesday afternoon, a day after the 53-man roster was set, Ryan Poles gave us about 15 minutes in the Hallis Hall media room, and he was asked about setting expectations for Caleb Williams in the early parts of his rookie season. Take a listen to some of Ryan Poles' thoughts.
I expect him to – it's a great question. I want him to lean on the talent around him and then when the time is right, and that's an instinctual thing, and I think that plays right into him, that's when you do the special. And balancing that. And then sometimes it's going to get out of whack one way or the other, but always come back to that. It's kind of like that neutral place where he's at his best. And I think he has that just from studying him and watching years of tape on him. He has that ability. And so I think that's kind of the big thing is just lean on the guys around him, be instinctual, let those wild plays happen at the right time. I mean, we saw it in the preseason a little bit. This can be important.
Studs, that ties in really nicely with some thoughts that quarterbacks coach Kerry Joseph shared on the first practice of rookie camp many moons ago. And essentially, Kerry Joseph was asked how Caleb will use his superpower, which is that extended play magic that we've already seen in the preseason, as a every week difference-making gift while not leaning too much into it to the point where he gets sort of addicted to trying to make the highlight reel play when there's other plays to be made. What you hear from Ryan Poles there is an echoing of that sentiment. Look around you. Look at Keenan Allen. Look at DJ Moore. Look at Rome Odunze. Look at Cole Kmet. Look at DeAndre Swift, and understand that you've been supplied with a core of playmakers that most rookie quarterbacks don't get the chance to play with. Use them. Get them the football. Let them make the plays. Save yourself for when we really need you to work your magic. And that's going to be interesting going forward. I think Matt Eberflus was referred to it as playing point guard, being that distributor, getting the ball out quickly. And then when you get in the big moments, third down, red zone, late in the game, you go ahead and put it on your shoulders and have enough to lift the team.
I think that this is something that we've really been talking about since we understood that he was going to be drafted by the Bears. And the concern that people threw out there was how at USC during his last year at USC, so last year, he played hero ball basically the entire season. And the rebuttal has been, well, he kind of had to, because if he didn't put up 40 points a game, they were going to lose. And if you actually look at his Heisman winning season, he played a lot more in structure and didn't play hero ball as much because he had really good receivers, a better defense, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that Caleb is smart enough and understanding enough of the situation that he's going to be able to handle that, like knowing that he doesn't have to play hero ball anymore. And I think will embrace that. It's probably comforting for him to know that I don't have to do the crazy stuff on every single play. I don't have to look for the 40-yard bomb on every play because I have a good defense. I have really good players around me, and I can just play point guard. And as Ryan Poles and you were saying, when it matters and when we need it the most, do the thing that he's best at, which is the crazy special throw like we saw to Odunze on the sideline in the preseason.
Yeah, we need a play, go make it. That's going to be the directive, half dozen times every game. And Caleb's going to have to figure out what that looks like and what that feels like and make that happen. This ties into a little bit of curiosity that I have. And now I'm writing a piece for week 1 about Matt Eberflus. We've talked all offseason about his glow up, a different style, the haircut, the beard, the different demeanor with the press. Now he's got to go through an 18-game regular season and test himself as an NFL head coach and see what improvements he's made. One of the things that I'm fascinated to watch is how he oversees the quarterback, because the quarterback is the key to unlocking the playoff berth, right? And so now you're in this situation where you've never really developed a quarterback. You're going to have to bring out the best in them. You're doing so with a uber talented number 1 overall pick in Caleb Williams, but you're also a defensive-minded coach with a really good defense and a playoff caliber roster where you're going to have to now juggle 2 things here, right? You're going to have to continue to oversee the growth and development of Caleb Williams and be tolerant of his mistakes. And you're also going to have to make sure that every single week you understand that this isn't a team where people are just going to say, 4-13, whatever, we've got a rookie quarterback. No, people are expecting 9-10 wins. People are expecting to walk into Christmas with the hopes of playoffs still sitting there right there for them. And so Matt's got to juggle that. So I had a chance on Wednesday to ask him a question about that topic and then listen to his answer. Here's what Matt had to say.
From your chair as a defensive-minded head coach with a really good defense and a competitive roster, how will you sort of balance the patience with letting Caleb kind of spread his wings and develop as a young quarterback without compromising the chance to win games on a weekly basis?
Yeah, I really think it's comes down to play design. I'm just going to micro it down to actually to the play. So we all know what he can do in terms of his arm talent, in terms of throwing on the move and those types of things. But in the early parts of the game and early downs, he's just asked to play point guard. Have a great operation, play point guard, get the ball to our skill, either by handing it off or throwing it to them and letting them do the run and then moving around and gaining the yards. And it's going to be big that our offensive line plays well, like I've said in the past, and everybody plays well around them. That's defense and special teams included. So, and then when you get to the point in the game where it is a critical down or a third down or in the red zone or whatever that might be, then you might see X factor come out, and that's where it is. But again, he's just about the process of getting in and out of the huddle, being smooth, and operating the offense.
So I didn't get a chance to follow up there, but I'm curious when he said you'll see X Factor come out. Is that his nickname for Caleb? Is Caleb X Factor?
Ooh.
Like I don't know if that's that, and we'll have to follow up on that next week when we get a chance to visit with Matt again. But similar sentiments there, right? And I do like it was one of my favorite answers at training camp from Matt. Because he did micro it down and he didn't try to dodge the question and really said, this is going to come down to play design. This is going to be on us as coaches to put him in a position to distribute the football. It's going to be up to us as coaches to make sure we are aware every single week of where he's at in his development and not ask him to do too much. And if we just ask him to do what's reasonable, then having all these playmakers around him, having a really good defense, having a playoff caliber roster is only going to help the mission, and it's going to take some of that pressure off Caleb. And so I do like this because it puts the onus on the coaching staff to create situations for success. It puts them in a position to call the right plays and have the right concepts folded into the playbook. And now, I think I speak for everyone here. Let's go. Let's go play a couple games so then we can kind of put all of these philosophical, strategies that the Bears have to the test in the regular season.
I think that the best thing that I've gathered from a couple things, actually, I've gathered from what the Bears have operated on, or the way the Bears have operated, since they drafted Caleb Williams was their understanding that just getting the quarterback is not like the solution. So many times in Bears history, it's been, okay, the quarterback's just going to fix everything. That happened with Jay Cutler. It was basically happening with Justin Fields for a little bit. You name a quarterback that we thought had the talent to be successful. And so many times the team was just, okay, he's just going to fix everything. And that's not the case. If you have, look, when you get to a point where you have a Patrick Mahomes who's an all-timer, yeah, he can basically fix everything now, but that wasn't the case when he first started. He needed really good players around him to help him out. And so they understand, it seems, that, okay, we have a quarterback that has a lot of talent, but he can't just be the fix-all. We have to help him. We have to bring him along. We have to set realistic expectations around him. And, they've laid a really good nest for him, which we've talked about extensively. And so it shows that the organization from the top down is operating differently than they have with other quarterbacks. Now, granted, it's been a very long time since they picked number one overall. It's been even longer. They never took a quarterback number one overall. If they did, it was probably a long time ago and I can't name them. So it shows growth organizationally. It shows that Ryan Poles has a plan, that Matt Eberflus understands he needs to be involved. And I think I love, and we'll get into Hard Knocks later, but I love how much Eberflus seems to meet with Caleb. And I know that Eberflus met with Justin Fields a lot as well. So that's not unusual, but he seems to really be involved in the quarterback's development and not just being a defensive head coach who runs the defense.
Well, look, and you understand that this quarterback holds your future in his hands, and so you have personal incentive to make sure that he's at his best. I really would love to get my hands on some of the cutting room floor footage from Hard Knocks and Hallis Hall, because I guarantee you there's some conversations that would be just absolutely riveting in terms of this coaching staff, Matt, Shane, Thomas Brown, Kerry Joseph, working with Caleb to bring out his best, over these last 5-6 weeks and get him ready to play in the regular season, because everyone is aware. Everyone knows the eyes that are going to be on them. It's not a spotlight game in week one. The Titans are coming to town. It won't be the top billed game of week one, but I promise you it will be under a pretty intense microscope, not just in Chicago, but nationally, to see how Caleb does. And so Matt's, handling of that and positioning his quarterback for success is going to be key. And what you're talking about right there, Studs, is just a heightened attention to detail. It's not that the previous coaching staffs or the previous regimes didn't have an attention to detail. It's just heightened now. It just feels more layered. It feels like they're going 1, 2, 3 steps further with some of the planning, with some of the infrastructure, with some of the support that they're giving to their quarterback and their offense. And now we've got to see results. And the quarterback who is never nervous going into games is going to have a chance to put that composure on display and produce in a way that propels everything forward. Because that's all we've talked about for months, is that this is going to be a player with the talent and the leadership ability and the drive and everything else to propel everything forward. Now you just buckle your seatbelt and you hope that ride goes forward and not sideways, backwards, and every other direction but forward.
It's the hope of all of us. And I just want to touch on the nervous thing in there. Like, first of all, like, I thought he was crazy when I first heard it. And I get that that's kind of his personality, but the more I thought about it, and I heard Caleb was on 670 The Score this week, and Mark Grody and Matt Spiegel asked him about that. They're like, why are you not nervous? Because a normal human would be nervous, right? And he basically said it's his preparation. Like, he's like, I trust my preparation so thoroughly that I don't feel a need to be nervous, and I can just be excited and go out there and play. And I think that's a really good answer. And ideally, that's professional athletes. That's how you should be. And I actually I figured out a comp to it, and this is really kind of nerdy, and I understand that. And I'll make this quick, but so I've run 3 marathons, and my last one especially, you're nervous, excited, the whole week leading up to the thing. And the day of, you would expect that you're just nervous as all hell. And I remember finding myself not nervous because I trusted that
You've done everything. Yeah.
And I was I did everything I could. My runs, I executed the plan that I had for the day. I did all my runs, and I had the runs that I needed to be confident in this. And it's I can just take this run as it comes to me, or in Caleb's case, take the game as it comes to me. And there's no reason to be nervous because I've done everything I can to prepare for this moment.
No,
so I think that I really understand why he wouldn't be nervous.
I love that. And as a coach of a youth baseball team, I wish I could get Caleb to come speak to the boys and just get them to understand that your preparation does breed the confidence that then gives you composure when the moments matter. The anecdote that I'll share with you comes from a story I did a few years ago when John Shire was taking over the basketball program at Duke from Coach K. And we were kind of talking about his fearlessness. And as a kid, obviously he grew up here. He went to Glenbrook North High School. While he was in grade school and middle school, he was going to the Proviso West tournament every year during the holidays, and just dreaming of one day being on that stage. And he gets into his very first Proviso West tournament. And I think it was the first quarter of the first game he played there. I wish I had the names of the teams and the players. He goes to shoot a 3-pointer, and he says, not only does this 3-pointer get blocked, but it gets blocked so emphatically that the guy who blocked it sends the basketball off my head, and his elbow basically hits me in the nose. And for me, my default reaction to that is, put me on the bench. I'll play in 3 weeks. And John's reaction to that was, this is awesome. Right. And there's certain guys that have that DNA, that competitive DNA, that they don't care about the stakes. They're so fearless and so into the competitive environment of things that they rise, and that's what the Bears have been seeking forever at the quarterback position. I think they've got a guy that's willing to test that on the NFL level, and we're going to have a lot of fun watching it, because it hasn't just been talk. You've watched him clear every hurdle and every checkpoint to this point. The more important ones are ahead, but with this same level of composure and poise and relaxedness, that is a relaxation that is truly palpable when you're around them. And so, again, let's go. Let's get to the regular season and test it out.
I think that, and just for clarity, I'm not comparing running marathons at an extremely amateur level to playing quarterback in an NFL game. I understand it's different, but it's
the mindset, right?
Yeah, it's the mindset.
I like
the mindset.
That.
Anyway, and yeah, some guys, it's like the story you're saying, some guys are just psychos, and those professional athletes are psychotic when it comes to stuff like that. Like they embrace the sort of thing that
they are who they are because they are who they are. Yeah,
yes, exactly.
There's no question about it.
Yeah, I know we have one more piece of audio here, Dan, and so this one has to do more with Matt Eberflus, and it comes from T.J. Edwards. So why don't you set this up for us?
Yeah, as I say, I'll be right next week on Matt and his. As of today, Studs, Matt Eberflus is not only the front runner on the betting lines to be the NFL Coach of the Year in 2024, he is also second on the list of coaches most favored to be fired next. And so if you don't understand the stakes that are here for Matt Eberflus and the fascination that's out there in the world about what this 2024 season means to the Chicago Bears direction in the organization, then you haven't been paying attention. But I do think Matt is very proud of where he's lifted this team to right now. Ryan Poles talked to us a little bit on Wednesday, and I asked him directly, as you've watched Matt since the end of last season until now, what has left an impression on you about the way he set this team up to go into the 2024 regular season. And Ryan identified three things. He said resilience, his ability to adapt and evolve on the fly, and then his ability to create bonds within the team. It's been a very intentional effort by Matt to get these guys to know one another very well, to hang out away from the facility, to create that very strong bond that helps you through a regular season. In addition to that, I think that there's a play style that's developed. And so part of that open-ended, I asked T.J. Edwards on Wednesday where he sees Matt Eberflus's fingerprints on this football team and this defense. Here's what TJ had to say.
I think, his hits principle is big, right? And I think when you first get here, you have to kind of, see it to kind of understand what it's supposed to look like. But now having, guys who've been here for 2-3 years and guys who can watch tape from last year of the same guys doing it, it's something that what's expected of you when you get here, and that's not just on the field, that's off the field too, of knowing what you're supposed to be doing, kind of having an understanding of the game, and your IQ of the game is big, but that's Flus through and through, man. That the run and hit, the being smart, the intensity, and taking the ball away.
So there's one player, kind of giving you his feedback on how he sees things going. I know hits can come across as sort of a corny acronym that really doesn't lead anywhere, but I think that there is a little bit of a buy-in to it that over time has just become organic at Hallis Hall, where guys understand the standard of practicing and playing. And now that they have the talent to go with the hits principle, it should start to become self-driving. And it'll just kind of create that snowball effect and get going. And so, yeah, I mean, look, like there's a lot on the line for Matt Eberflus, because you know as well as I do that all of the feel good that has followed him since the winter and the spring to now, it's going to disappear quickly if this team is 1-4 when we're in the middle of October and heading for the bye week.
I really like how. We obviously have the physical glow up of Matt Eberflus, and it's like that's one thing, but the way that the Bears themselves and he himself have put him out there more so that we get a more of an understanding of what he's actually like as a coach. And TJ Edwards just speaking to this, like you kind of, it's given me more confidence in who he is. Now we still will find out this year if he's good enough to take this team where they need to be.
Yep.
The last couple of years, you can make a really solid argument that he didn't have what he needed to succeed. Yeah. And especially his first season, which I think we all gave everyone a pass for. But anyway, I think that we've really gotten more of a glimpse into who he is. And I think that there could actually be a good coach in here. Now we need to see it on the field. We need to see it on game day, but the way that he's speaking now at the podium, what we see on Hard Knocks, the players clearly have bought in to what he does, even though it took some of them a while. Jalen Johnson, Eberflus's first year, talked about how it took him a while to buy in, but then he saw the effect and he was able to buy into what they were doing. So I think that I'm really excited to see what happens with him in the season now. And when things get tough, because they will, how does that affect him at the podium? How does that affect the way he coaches games? So there's a long way to go for us to know whether or not he's the guy long term, but you've seen a little bit of something, I think, this offseason that shows you why they kept him. like this is why they wanted to keep him on and at least see what he can do when there's genuine talent all across the team.
Yeah, I mean, he just seems more comfortable. And now, again, the next sign of discomfort will be when they lose a couple in a row. When you have a couple key injuries and you've got to answer questions on why your defense blew a double-digit lead or this, that, and the other thing. So we'll see. It's ready for that test as well for Matt to get out there and kind of show his stuff, because I think game management is going to be a big part of this season as well, and understanding how to do that properly, aggressively, in a way that keeps your team's belief where it is right now. Because I can tell you that the belief right now inside that building as they head for the starting gate of week 1 is as high as I remember during my time on the beat.
And that's great. You can tell this team believes, especially on defense, they believe that they can be a good team. So, all right, Dan, last thing here, we got to talk about Hard Knocks. So the second
you
to
start.
last
I'm just ducking out of the screen for a second to grab my notebook so I have my Hard Knocks notes. But yeah, this was it, the penultimate episode of Hard Knocks.
So we got a lot more in this episode than I was actually expecting. And I think that the thing that everyone came away with was, and we all, I'm sure, knew this was coming, but the Ian Wheeler injury and the way Hard Knocks, and I know that this is what they do, but they sadistically built up him throughout the whole episode. And, especially those of us that follow the team know what's coming. We know, okay, at the end of this, he tears his ACL. And it was it was heartbreaking watching the way that, I didn't realize, and this is again what Hard Knocks is for. I didn't realize his mom was there. And so them showing the way his mom reacted and their hug after the game is heartbreaking. And it is tough not to root for him going forward. So that was my first takeaway from the episode, was great. First of all, great storytelling, but just heartbreaking. And I really hope that he is able to come back healthy and get another chance at this.
I'm incredibly interested in filmmaking. I took some classes in college, and if I had gotten on a different career path, maybe that'd be something that would have appealed to me. The moment for me from Tuesday's episode that really just hit you was that hug outside of the Arrowhead Stadium locker room. And it wasn't just how long the cameras stayed with Ian Wheeler and his mom outside that locker room. It's that they stayed there until they caught that one tear creeping down. It's Biora Wheeler's right cheek, and you could just feel the parent-child bond, the parent-child heartbreak, the parent-child strength, right, to help each other through a moment that was absolutely galling for the both of them. And it was just a really good piece of film, I guess. In some ways it's obviously reality, but you just felt it. You felt that emotion, and you're like, man, I can't help but root for this kid to get another crack at it in 2025. Obviously, you then get the scene in Ryan Poles' office where he's being ultra supportive of Ian Wheeler and hoping that he can stay mentally engaged so that he doesn't become, in Ryan's words, stagnant as he rehabs and recovers, because there is an opportunity for him to have an NFL career. It's going to be a much longer climb than it originally might be.
And I think that, something else you take away from that is, and this, I think that we kind of had this figured out about Ryan Poles anyway, but we'll see going forward how good of a GM he actually is. But I don't think there's any doubt that he's just a good dude. And him being there for Ian Wheeler in that moment and saying hey, I'm here for you. You need anything, my phone's always on, I think is really important. And I'm sure that's not the only player he's done that with. Yeah. But to actually and get confirmation that he understands that this is a human and this is going to be really difficult for him, and he's going to keep his door open.
It's something that Kevin Warren identified very early when he came in the building and he became the overseer of Ryan Poles, is the emotional intelligence, right? And the inability to handle those moments in the way that he does. And it's a gift that Ryan has, and it's something that resonates with his coaches, something that resonates with his players. And it creates buy-in when you have that feeling of support from the very top of the front office. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because Ryan does deserve a ton of credit for those touches, and they're not sporadic, they're consistent, they're regular. And it's a sign of leadership, a show of leadership that hopefully will, again, another thing that you hope will propel the Bears forward. I will say the other piece of filmmaking that I loved more than anything else in this episode was the back and forth between the meditative Zen state of Adrian Colbert and the maniacal aggression of Travis Bajan. And the fact that Hard Knocks found a way to tell those two stories, toggling back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Like, that was fun. I think it was only like 3.5 minutes or something like that, but you're sitting there and you got Adrian Colbert playing his sound bowls and, in a yogi like trance, and then you got Travis Bajan in a bar in Kansas City arm wrestling dudes and screaming at the top of his lungs, and you're just like, man, this is really good compare and contrast here between these two dudes and these sort of small supporting characters in the Bears story.
Adrian Colbert's story was fascinating, and I actually didn't realize he'd been around the league as long as they said. But the way the way he goes about like being so zen, like you saw with like the bowls and everything, and him during the game, like talking about how he's overthinking and he needs to settle down, and then you see him make some plays after struggling early. So like I just looked it up because I wasn't sure. He hasn't been picked up by anyone yet, but I hope he gets another shot because he's an easy guy to root for. And 2 years ago he probably would have made the Bears 53 because they just didn't have the talent. But he's the kind of guy that you see some flashes. So easy guy to root for, and I hope he gets a shot somewhere.
I think he might have been on the Bears 53 a couple of years ago for a couple.
He probably
weeks.
was.
Everyone was. And so along with that, you get the story, his backstory of the accident he had as a child. I think 9 years old, hit while riding his bike, hit by a car, and in his words, in a coma for a couple of weeks. And you can't help but ruminate on that with the similarities to Kevin Warren and the accident that he had when he was a child that he 100% says was life altering to the way he attacks his everyday world, and you see that with Adrian Colbert as well, the gratitude, the appreciation for like, my world could have been drastically different because of that twist of fate. And so I'm going to walk out to practice without my shoes on. I'm going to appreciate every leaf in the tree. I'm going to be kind of this free spirit, and I'm going to be unapologetic about it because I'm just thankful for where I'm at right now. We'll see if the final episode of Hard Knocks will take us through his exit, the moment where he is told that he is being released by the Bears. And so that's going to be interesting to see what they include. I know it's become less and less common for them to show the heartbreaking cuts. But given how much they've built that story up, it feels like it's going to be difficult to just oh, well, you got to know Adrian Colbert last week. That's it. And the story, I think you're going to have to put some closure on that somehow.
They're going to have to show something. And if, I think that, I think they've pretty much stopped showing the player actually getting cut in the room, but I'm sure they have to do something. And just one final note, because we haven't quite mentioned this yet. Curious to what they show with Austin Reed, who made the practice squad, and so like this is a real quick dynamic. So like, because we haven't necessarily covered this, like I think we all expected Brett Rippon to get brought back. It sounds like he wanted to get a chance on the 53 somewhere, and so Brett Rippon is signed with the Vikings. Yeah, Rippon is signed with the Vikings, and so Austin Reed is here on the practice squad, and so that'll probably be a nice little feature. I'm sure because they featured him so much at the end of the 4th episode, and I'm sure that they'll show him
returning.
Returning.
And for Austin Reed, they featured him enough that we could see his I guess you'd just call it straight up fear as he was getting out of the elevator to go at the sky deck at the Willis Tower and go out on the ledge there. I mean, that of the 3 quarterbacks, Rippon, Bajan, and Reed, who went out there, he seemed to be the most hesitant to walk on that glass ledge out there and look out over the city. He's been obviously a really enjoyable dude to get to know through this program, and then obviously at Hells Hall as well. And he gets an opportunity. We didn't have enough time with Ryan Poles on Wednesday. One of the questions that I think one of the probably 24 that were left hanging out there is, what do you do inside that quarterback's room now that you've got a rookie, guy with 4 games under his belt as a Division II undrafted guy a year ago, and now another undrafted guy out of Division II in your room. Where do you lean for the experience? I know we've talked about Shane Waldron and Kerry Joseph and Ryan Griffin and Thomas Brown, and I'd just be curious to get a little bit more from those inside the building, because I don't think they ever truly envisioned going into week 1 without with that little experience, I guess, in their quarterback's room. It's notable, and they're going to have to find a way to navigate around it.
Yeah, so we'll obviously keep tabs on that. We'll keep tabs on what happens with Hard Knocks next week. We'll wrap it up here. Thank you for listening to Take the North. Dan Wiederer is with the Chicago Tribune. David Hall will be back next week. We'll get into our regular season mode, as I think our schedules are all going to settle out next week for the most part. So it's, hey, next time we talk, unless something crazy happens, it's game week. So it's on, and it's been a long and crazy road, and we'll be here to document it for you.
I'm ready for it. I'm excited for it. This should be a fun road. So stick with us for the journey.
So again, for Dan Wiederer, I'm Adam Studzinski. We'll talk to you next time on the Take the North podcast.
Great talk. See you out there.